Anthony, the political Italian, is a concerned patriot with an alternative perspective to the left-right paradigm. He's a lifelong patriot who's taken the red pill, been following Trump's progress for over 25 years, and might even be considering a run for Congress. Stay tuned for that today on the Unframe of Mind show.
You're listening to the Unframe of Mind show, the place to have the most mind-stretching, unprotected, intellectual intercourse of your life. Your hosts battle the forces of evil by lobbing fiery balls of truth, reason, and evidence over safe room walls.
Alrighty, and welcome back to another episode of the Unframe of Mind show. I'm your host, Daniel Wagner, and we're about to have us yet another uncomfortable conversation without a condom. I'd like to introduce my guest, Anthony, the political Italian, to the show.
Hi, Daniel. How you doing?
Hey, what's going on, man? So just for people that are viewing this and as opposed to the podcast version, I've actually got a picture of him as Andrew Jackson. He wants to remain anonymous for this particular show, and I'll let him explain what that's about and why we picked this particular icon, and we'll go from there and see what we come up with.
Yeah, the reason why Andrew Jackson is up there, like I said, I've supported Trump probably close to 25 years. Andrew Jackson actually is a symbol that Trump actually keeps in his office. I'll actually go over that shortly. I'm not really ready to go ahead and go ahead and give exactly, my identity, what I'm going to do. I'm kind of like Trump. I don't like to go ahead and put all my cards on the table. And I've considered making a run for Congress. I don't know if it would be in the state that I'm actually in or if it would actually be in D.C. But I do know if I run, I know I'm going to win. And it's only because of the fact is I pretty much know how people are winning, how this system works, et cetera. And I've pretty much spent probably close to a decade learning what this elite group of folks know, which is why regular people continue to suffer, and why Trump is such a valuable asset to the country as a whole, whether you like him or you don't. The situation with Andrew Jackson is that Trump is actually wanting to be the next Andrew Jackson, and I think that what's happening right now in the country, whether you like him or you don't, it's a crucial part of the United States survival.
Yeah, you mentioned. Well, I guess he hung a picture of Andrew Jackson in his office as well.
Yes. Trump actually has hung a picture of Andrew Jackson in his office, and what most people don't realize, because like I said, history has been a long time ago, but Andrew Jackson was a Democrat, and most people don't realize that Trump was also a Democrat first, right. And he actually did not become registered Republican until the early 80s. But that's just because of the fact is I don't really think Trump actually really believed that he was an overall Democrat. I think it really was just basically because of the fact is he was in a place where he built his wealth as a Democrat. He pretty much actually had to, appeal to all the Democrats because, as he's said he's paid people on both sides of the aisle when he was a private person before he ever ran for president of the United States.
Right on. Now, and when you reached out to me, you mentioned you were wanting to go over what's been going on with Trump lately. What is it about Trump that people don't understand?
There's a series of things. I guess we'll start with is Trump actually does he actually have a clue in reference of what's going on? Because the thing is that most people try to say that people that were put into power in the presidency, they were selected, they were not elected. I look at Trump as actually the accidental president. I don't believe that he was ever supposed to win, but I actually feel that the actual creator of the universe actually placed him in the White House. Trump has done a lot of things that most people never even really paid attention to when he actually did it as a private citizen, because people have always looked at Trump as the classic, the entertainer, haha, you're fired, this and that. But most people really never realized that, the same people that are coming after Trump are the same people that actually really liked him before he became president, such as Kathy Griffin, Eminem, Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, and the list could just go on and on and on.
Right. Yeah, I've heard about all the different rap lyrics and things like that, where people are always constantly referencing Trump in some way, shape, or form as almost a symbol of somebody they want to strive to be like, or something to that effect.
Sure.
Is that what you're
Yeah.
talking about? Yeah, I think
Well,
a lot of people are
the
aware of
biggest
that stuff.
thing is that it's just the fact is everyone is just so hypocritical because they all thought that he was one of them until he stepped foot into the White House. And then when they saw that he was not towing the line, per se, so to speak, everyone kind of started to, get upset, turn against him, go ahead and try to use, the race card and every other thing you could possibly think of. But if you've noticed, he just continues to steamroll through all of it, as we continue to see.
Now, to be fair, we could have had this very exact same conversation back in 2016 during the election. I mean, this is nothing necessarily I think is new to the mainstream, or at least people that are paying attention. And I was looking for a little more in depth about what's going on with him currently. There's been a whole series of constant attempts to try to pin some kind of crime on him, or you got the Russiagate scandal, you've got Ukraine Gate, and all this different crap that keeps coming up constantly, and there seems to be like a thread or a through line that's going on with all that even I'd say Dan Bongino did an excellent job bringing do you listen to Dan Bongino at all?
Yes, I'm a fan.
Yeah, well, one of the things that he's pointed out recently is that all of the people that are connected to these different hoaxes, if you will, are all the same people. It's just the new packaging. It's just a new hoax over and over and over again.
Let me talk about that, because this is something that what I'm about to say is this is something Don Bongino will not talk about, and nobody else for that matter. And it's just because of the fact is they they don't want to be a target themselves. And the thing is that I feel that what Trump has done up until this point is he's done everything he can as one person, but we're going to go back to the Podesta emails. I'm sure you're familiar with that, correct?
For the most part, yeah.
Okay. Well, the thing is that everything, in my opinion, of what is happening right now around the country, the fake hoax, the thing with Joe Biden, Russiagate, Ukraine, Hillary Clinton going ahead and talking about she'd like to take another stab at Trump and run against him, etc. It's all connected to human trafficking, every bit of it. And I'm going to explain in vivid detail why I know this all to be true. If you look at, let's start with the border, okay?
Yeah. If we're going to go down this road, we're going to have to make sure that we make it clear and concise, because a lot of people are aware of what's going on. They've even had hints of what's going on. I don't know that the mainstream. Obviously, the mainstream's not covering it, and I think you and I both know why that is.
Well, actually, they have, but it's been very subtle.
Well,
so if we look at
let's start at the very beginning and just I don't know about the beginning, but let's start with some of the basic facts that we all know to be true, and then just work out from there. How about that?
Okay, that's fine. Let's go ahead and let's start with the Podesta emails. We know that WikiLeaks is a completely verifiable and true organization. We know they have 13 years of complete track record on the books of all emails being cryptographically verified.
Right. Consistency.
So we know that to be 100% fact. We also know.
Sorry to interrupt, but we also know that the left used to love WikiLeaks back in the day. Because they were putting out material that was helpful to them, and now they can't stand WikiLeaks.
That's correct. And so now all of a sudden, they want to try to keep this stuff quiet. So now let's move on to the term Pizzagate. Now, Pizzagate, of course, we know it's real according to the Podesta emails, and we know that the mainstream media has tried to go ahead and pin Comet Ping Pong as basically the conspiracy theory about kids being trapped in a basement of a pizza parlor.
Yeah, we've heard the
mainstream media narrative.
Yeah, we've heard the news stories about that for sure.
That's correct. But what they don't talk about is that Trump actually used the word Pizzagate in 2011. And if you actually go to the YouTube channel of CNN and you type in Trump, Anthony Wiener, Pizzagate, you will actually find a clip that actually talks about Trump actually using the term Pizzagate and Wienergate. So the question we have to ask ourselves is, since that's actually sitting right now on CNN's YouTube channel, and the argument that when people bring this up is, well, that was because of the fact that Sarah Palin was going to have pizza with Trump, and Trump was eating pizza with a fork, which is absolute buffoonery.
All right, give me just a moment here, because I try to type in, like you just said. You said you go to CNN.com, you type in.
No. I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. YouTube. If you go into YouTube and you just type in Trump, Pizzagate, Anthony Wiener, CNN, it'll pop right up.
Okay, we'll give that a shot and see what we come up with. I'm just curious what you're getting at. You can go ahead. I'm bringing it up as we talk.
The actual thing is, if you just type in Anthony Wiener, Trump, Pizzagate, it's the very first one. It's about 2 minutes and 24 seconds.
All right, so I'm guessing it's this 8 years ago, 2 minutes 24 seconds, CNN Trump.
That's correct. If you want, why don't you go ahead and play that clip real quick? It's not very long.
That's
last time I had him on my show was in a fairly lively debate with you, actually. What do you make of this?
Well, I was a little surprised by that debate because all of a sudden he comes out of nowhere and starts going crazy. And, I've known him over the years, and I learned a lot about him that night. I was absolutely shocked. I mean, I found to be almost unstable. And I watched this today because I was watching between Pizzagate and Anthony Wienergate. I found Anthony Wienergate to be a terrible situation. He obviously knows it's him, and the way he's handled it is either lying or incompetent, and either one is unacceptable. So he's either incompetent or he's lying. Now, it was him because otherwise he would have said that wasn't me. And, he's almost trying to say, well, I don't know it's me. Now, who would not know that's him? Who would not know a picture in that rather terrible position was or wasn't taken? I mean, you know those things. So he's
obviously we're getting into...
His answers.
Well, we're getting into difficult territory here, Donald. But I mean, would you 100% recognize yourself in a similar image?
Well, I'd know if somebody had a picture of me in, that position and wearing those clothes, and I'd say, yeah, that's me, or it's not me. And he's sort of indicating that it is him, and it's a pretty bad picture. Let's not kid ourselves. And then all of a sudden, that gets sent over to some young woman who's at this point saying, oh, gee, she was surprised to get it. I mean, I think he's handled it horribly. I think he's made what could have been a small story into a very, very big story. And then, he comes out with this whole crazy excuse that he really doesn't want to go much further. It was just a joke. I don't think that's just a joke. And I think it's pretty bad when a congressman gets hacked into.
Yeah, I mean, he obviously gave a lengthy interview to Wolf Blitzer earlier, which, when I was watching it, seemed to raise more questions than it answered.
I watched a couple of those interviews, and I think they were total catastrophes for him. I think it really brings into question whether or not he can ever run for mayor of New York, and maybe whether or not he even keeps the position he's in right now. He's handled it very, very poorly.
All righty. Okay, so you said that clip was from 2011?
Yes.
Okay, so Wienergate didn't happen in 20.
Well, that's what. Well, the 2011. Well, I mean, that's actually when it showed that it was uploaded to YouTube by CNN. Let's put it that way.
All right, it says June 1st, 2011.
Yep, that's it.
I do see that, but hold on now, that doesn't make any sense because the Wienergate and all that stuff didn't happen until what, 2015?
Yeah, the actual date. I apologize. The actual date is really not the significance. The point is, it was done well before the Podesta emails.
Okay, that's what's confusing me right now. Why is this listed from back in 2011? That happened way later, unless there's something else going on that I'm not aware of.
To be honest with you, I don't know. Like I said, it's what's said that's significant in that clip.
Yeah, I noticed the mention of Pizzagate in there.
Yes.
Is that the significant part?
Yes, because that was before Pizzagate ever broke into the mainstream from the WikiLeaks Podesta emails. That's the purpose of the clip.
Okay, so the show premiered. Pierce Morgan Live actually premiered. The show itself premiered on January 17th of 2011. This clip says it's from June 1st of 2011, just a few months later. This isn't making any sense to me.
The actual time frame, the actual 2011, actually, after thinking about it, the Wienergate scandal actually naturally broke around the time that you're saying. But the purpose of the clip itself, regardless of the actual date of it, was the fact that this happened. He said it before the Pizzagate scandal ever broke into the mainstream, connected to WikiLeaks and the Podesta emails. That's kind of the significance of it.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to check some timelines on there to verify that. And anybody that's listening, don't take what we say with a grain of salt. I mean, we're just doing research. We're out here trying to figure this stuff out on as we go. Anthony here's ironically we're speaking with Anthony, the the Italian, the political Italian, and we're doing research on another Anthony who's. Yeah, that's weird. And then my host's name is also Anthony, my co-host as well. He's normally here. Yeah, so this was around 2016. It looks like. Yeah, Anthony Wiener didn't even return to politics until April 2013, is what it's saying here.
But he actually, according to, if you actually look, it actually shows he actually was he ran unsuccessfully for mayor of New York in 2010, but he actually appeared to be a candidate in 2009.
That's interesting. I'm looking at the comments, and even the comments are talking about Trump as a time traveler, and I have heard that theory before, which is a really weird one. That's a tough one to put especially when there's no, as far as we know, any documented case of actual time traveling going on. But I have been approached with this before as an actual
indicating that it is him.
Oops, I have actually been approached with this before as a possible conspiracy theory, if you will. But let's. Sure. I don't want to get hung up on the details too much, but definitely look into that one a little more and see what you can find out. But Okay, so Trump mentions Pizzagate before it was even a thing.
Yeah. So the question that we need to ask ourselves is if he actually used the term Pizzagate when he actually said Wienergate. The question we have to ask ourselves is how long has he known about the term Pizzagate? That was the significance of that CNN clip. That's the significance of it in a nutshell. So now let's go ahead and let's fast forward. Let's fast forward to where he actually now is president and wins the White House.
Mm-hmm.
He does an executive order going ahead and stating that he is going to combat all human trafficking.
Meaning?
Now, well, all executive, just for reference for people, all executive orders that Trump has ever done, or any president for that matter, can be found in the Federal Register.
Go on.
Okay. And the thing is that the reason why in my opinion, I believe the reason why he ran for president is because of human trafficking. Because I think he's known about this for a long, long time. Let me go ahead and talk about this part. One of the things I find very interesting about Donald Trump, even after he became president as well as before, he continues to specifically champion that he's never had a drink in his life. Mm-hmm. But he also admits that he's been to all of these after parties. So if he's one of the only ones that we know that's hardly on the record repeatedly that's never had a drink, according to what everyone says or whatever, just imagine what he saw at those after parties.
I mean, the fact that he's even at the after party should be enough. I mean, I don't understand what.
Well,
I mean, he could be held just as liable as anybody else that was at those after parties. I mean, there's what makes him different just because he didn't have a drink, or what do you mean?
Well, it's the fact of he was actually coherent in reference of whatever it is that he saw. So at that point, in my personal opinion, it's actually classified as credible. Let's fast forward to Jeffrey Epstein.
Now hold on. You said it's classified as credible because he said he didn't have anything to drink.
Well, what I'm basically saying is that if you go ahead, everything's a public record. If you go ahead and you listen to what his doctor said, his doctors has confirmed that he hasn't ever had anything to drink, and that was before he ever ran for the White House.
Well, that might be. I mean, there's no telling he could have had something else. I mean, we do know he's got a past history with diet pills and things like that. I mean, he's not against putting substances in his body.
True, but okay. So let's fast forward to Epstein. If you actually do some research, you'll actually find out that the actual prosecutor for the state of Florida actually admitted on the record that out of everyone that they tried to get to come forward, Trump was the only one that was willing to cooperate to actually give the evidence on Epstein to Palm Beach County Police Department.
Okay, so I guess I'd be curious, why is Trump not dead then? If that's been if that's the case,
it's a great question, isn't it? There's a lot of things that Trump has done that I'm surprised that he is not dead yet. I personally think I've heard a lot of people, including myself, thinking that Trump will be the next JFK. But with everything that I'm continuing to see that he's doing, I think that even though I think he's done everything that he can. Some people can say he's a part of the system. Some people say he's not a part of the system. He's a patriot. You know, people say he's a traitor or whatever.
I've seen pretty good cases.
But what I see is, I think that what we're going to see is we are going to see the days of Richard Nixon repeat.
Meaning what?
I believe that what we're going to see is we are going to go back to the gold standard, and the inflation is going to drop. But what most people think that when we go back to the gold standard, everything is all hunky-dory. And I think that it's nothing more than a way to go ahead and allow normal, everyday people that basically, live life and are just constantly distracted by everything that they have to do in their lives to be able to have a little bit of financial relief before things really go ahead and get crazy and out of control. I personally think that this is just the tip of the iceberg of what's to come and after Trump is out of office.
Now, maybe it's just the circles that I hang out in, but
sure.
I've never met anybody that is well aware of how our financial system works, and they're familiar with the Fed policy and what that entails. I've never met a single one of them that thought if they go back to the gold standard, everything's going to be hunky-dory. It's kind of either one or the other. Either you're aware of all this and you're freaking out because you know how terrible it's going to be, or you don't know any of it and you just don't know. So you just live your daily life. So I don't know anybody that thinks it's going to be hunky dory.
And I totally agree with you. But what I'm stating is that for the normal average person that doesn't really understand, doesn't really look at any of these things. They say I don't get into politics. All the other things. I think that once we go back to the gold standard, because we originally went off the gold standard when Nixon was in office. I think the inflation is going to drop significantly, but a lot of people are going to look at that when we get back on the gold standard, it's going to look like that. Trump went ahead and stop the Fed, and it's an illusion because everything is going to get much cheaper.
Yeah,
because now we're going to have an actual hard substance that's actually going to be more than just paper. Because it was like this ever since 1910, and then when Richard Nixon was in office, he took us off the gold standard, and then the inflation just started plummeting. just started skyrocketing. Excuse me.
Yeah, that's definitely something we talk about from time to time on the show. That's something that I've been trying to bring to everybody's attention is the terrible financial or monetary policy that we have, and it is interesting to see. Okay, let me put it this way.
Sure.
I don't foresee anything happening short of us either going to war, which is what the elites have been trying to get us to do. That's one way that they can hide the financial troubles that we're in, and the other way is just a straight up collapse. It's going to happen at some point. It's just a matter of when at this point. But I don't foresee Trump being able to do enough in time to turn that ship around without some major catastrophic level crap about to happen. Does that make sense?
Well, I mean, absolutely. I mean, the biggest thing that I'm wanting that I'm trying to that I'd like to get across to your audience is that we know Trump is doing the right thing because we've never seen anything like this that I can recall since JFK. And I think that the reason why we've got the impeachment scandal, that's nonsense. We've got the Russia hoax. We have all these different things. We actually had a shooting happen at Mar-a-Lago. I believe it was today. Two women actually crashed into a couple of security barriers, and actually shots were fired. And this was before Trump arrived today. Mainstream media reports that. I just think that with everything that is going on, I believe that this is, I guess you could say that I think that with everything that is continuing to happen, because we have the lobbyists that naturally go ahead and control the majority of the politicians. And because of that, they go ahead and tell, of course, the majority of them are basically told how to go ahead and place their vote. But I think that what we are seeing is that Trump is what I call the bull in the china shop. I think that he was put here to knock everything over, shake everything up, and try to get people to go ahead and just kind of awaken to kind of say, this stuff needs to be exposed.
When you say put here, what do you mean put here?
Well, it's like I said, my faith is Christianity. I personally think that God pretty much put Trump in the White House to go ahead and basically prepare what's actually to come in the near future.
I'll walk with you down that road. Like, what evidence do you have for that? That's interesting.
Well, the biggest thing that I have is that everything that we continue to see, Trump out of this unscathed. And I personally think that 2020 is probably going to be one of the most exciting years that we have ever had, not just politically, but also as a country.
So you feel like the fact that he's made it through this far without actually getting in any trouble, really, from?
Well, I mean, absolutely. I mean, the knives are out. It's like whether you like him, whether you hate him, it's very clear that the knives are out, and these people will do anything they can, whether Republican or Democrat establishment, to go ahead and have him removed from office because they're afraid of the crimes being exposed.
Right. And if he's God's chosen and he's making it through unscathed and escaping the knives is what you're talking about, who does that make everybody else the devil or the enemy, or I'll say
this,
or just the clueless, like
sure.
misguided. I'm confused what role they play in this.
Sure. People go ahead and say that the people that run this planet actually go ahead and they're selected to be in these positions of power, specifically the presidency.
Selected by the elites or by God?
No, the elites.
Okay.
No, the
yeah,
elites.
yeah. When we're talking on
think,
this level, we're gonna have to specify at this point.
Yeah, that's fine. But I believe that God basically placed Trump in the White House, for what's to come in the near future. What I find interesting is let's go back to the human trafficking for a second, because it's all tied into this.
Okay.
If we look in mainstream media sources, I can't remember the last time I have not found in the, let's say the last 12 months, I have not found, there's almost a day that does not go by that I do not find someone in positions of power being arrested for either sex abuse or human trafficking. And this also includes in government currently, as well as in the Trump administration as well.
Okay, I haven't really heard about this exactly.
Okay,
are these major?
I don't remember the name off the top of my head, but there actually was a you could do a Google search, you'll find it.
Right.
There was actually a CDC director.
Sorry, man. I hate to tell you this. I don't Google search. I duck go.
Oh,
man.
sure. Whatever you want to use. I don't either, but whatever you want to use. The Center of Disease Control. The director was actually just arrested recently, like in the last 2 weeks.
Okay.
And naturally, that person might not have been handpicked by Trump, but he was still part of the Trump administration because, Trump is president for the time being, and he was arrested.
So you're talking about former CDC director pleads guilty.
That's it.
Tom Frieden pleads guilty
Yep.
in sex abuse case, gets no jail
There it is.
time. Gets no jail time. That you said that was
Former head of the CDC.
Sorry, you said that was 2 weeks ago?
No more than. It's just. I mean, every single day.
Oh, this particular
there's a
article
story.
was written June 4th of 2019.
Okay, 2019. Okay.
That was working on almost a year ago. That's a little more
Okay.
than 2 weeks.
Sorry.
I suppose you've slept since then, yeah.
Yeah, with all the, well, to be fair, I mean, with all the fake news or whatever, to be honest with you, it's really hard to go ahead and keep track of it all, because I mean, it just comes in constantly.
Let me ask you this then, because that is an interesting conundrum to be in. Is how do you in particular determine the difference between fake and real? I mean, I noticed.
Sure.
Before you start, the reason I'm asking is because what I notice a lot of people do is they'll go through and read a bunch of articles, and things that they agree with, oh, that's good news. Things they disagree with, oh, that's fake news. And it's you get what I'm saying? That's not really the best way to go about it.
Sure. To answer that question, my definition of fake news is. Well, before I get into that, let me talk about something real quick, because it's all connected to this fake news thing.
Okay.
When Obama was in office, there was a bill that passed, Democrats and Republicans. It was specifically connected to this fake news. I'm trying to remember what the actual bill was, but basically, it was designed where it was legal for all publications to say whatever they wanted. They were allowed to lie, and it was classified, and they were now supposed to look at it as entertainment.
Yeah, I've heard about that. I don't remember what it was called, but I have heard about that.
So, in my opinion, is regardless of if it comes from an independent source or it comes from a mainstream media source, if it can actually be documented, regardless of where it comes from, then I believe it's credible. I don't feel that CNN, Washington Post, MSNBC, and Fox News is where only we need to get our news. I think international sources and so forth are also really important to actually go ahead and get our news, because I just feel like that anything that we see on TV, the things that we find off of TV, I think we need to be more concerned of the things that we actually find off the television than actually on the television.
Okay.
As long as there's some type of actual source to actually back that up, not just somebody on YouTube, just kind of going ahead and it's just kind of going ahead and going on, but there's actually no evidence for it.
Oh, kind of like us.
Well, I mean,
no, I'm just playing, man. I'm just playing. So
Okay,
where
sure.
would you consider, like, is there a particular news source that you would consider like a go-to for you? Like you feel like these guys do a great job. They pretty consistent.
Sure. I would say page 6 is good. Washington Examiner, New York Post, because the thing is that most of the things that is in the New York Times, the Washington Post, CNN, MSNBC, or whatever, a lot of that stuff has just kind of gotten out of control. They've just kind of wanted to spin it however they wanted to spin it. But the majority of the time, when you get things from the other places that I've mentioned, you can actually find credible stuff in there. And I don't really feel like they're trying to go ahead and hide anything or cover it up, because I found a lot of things in those places that I never found at, CNN, MSNBC, Washington Post, etc.
Gotcha.
Just to name a few.
Yeah, I was just curious because I actually created an entire article or a guide really on going through finding out fake news, kind of what to look for, what not to look for. You might check that out, see if maybe there's something.
Absolutely.
Sure. Maybe there's something that you feel like I'm missing. I'm always looking to improve it and help people help themselves to find the reliable sources. So.
Sure.
I would say WikiLeaks.
I'd be happy to look at that.
Yeah, I know it's not a news source per se, but it is a good source for information. Would be WikiLeaks. I agree with you on that. That just based on their track record, that's hugely important. Is having a track record of consistency and nobody being able to say, "Hey, you lied." It really helps.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. But I mean, when I don't know how much you've seen this, but lately all I see, let's just hypothetically say the last 16 months. We're not going to say 2 weeks. We'll just say the last 16 months, because this stuff is so depressing. I can't look at it every day. I just can't. Okay. Local officials for, indicted for some type of corruption, voter fraud, money laundering. I mean, pick a crime, any crime. But when you see this during Trump's time, but we didn't really see this during the Bush years. We didn't really see it during the Obama years at this magnitude. Mm-hmm. It's just kind of like there has to be something significant, whether you like Trump or not, in the Trump presidency that basically is exposing human trafficking. I mean, the fact that I can go ahead right now and actually find a story within the last 7 days of basically children in a restaurant with their mom or grandma, yeah, and people actually trying to kidnap them while they're having lunch. It's just absolutely horrific. It's absolutely horrific.
Yeah, interestingly, though, you might want to check that up against statistics of abductions have actually gone down quite a bit since like the 80s from last time I checked. I mean, it's actually a lot less prevalent now than it's ever been, which is, I get looking at the news every day. It's easy to find stuff, especially when you're talking about, I just said especially. What is wrong with me? Sorry. Especially when you've got a, worldwide of news sources to look at, it makes it seem like it's just getting so terrible when you can see it every day. And you're right, you can't look at this stuff every day. I am curious though. I mean, I want to get a little bit off topic, and maybe you can tell me a little bit without giving away personal details or anything like that. But what I am curious, like, what interests you about this? What is it that makes you dig in so deep and keep digging and keep digging and keep digging? Like, what is it that's keeping you interested?
The thing that got me, I'll answer that. What got me was I didn't really pay attention. I used to be, hardcore, diehard Republican. I'm still a registered Republican, but I'm just at the point now where I now view things where everything I'm seeing now is whether you're a Democrat, whether you're a Republican, I now look at this as you're either for globalism or you're for patriotism. There really is no in between anymore. I look at it as that it's a bird, and it's the left-right paradigm is literally nothing more, regardless of party, political views, whatever. Because I mean, there's several Democrats that I've met that are actually very nice.
You sound surprised. You sound legit surprised.
But of course they're the blue collar, the Ronald Reagan types. But the thing is that I just look at it is that it's just a bird. It's a bird with just the other wing of the same bird. It's really nothing different. You have establishment that's been there for decades. Mm-hmm. You have corruption that's been going on for decades in Republicans and in Democrats. The difference is that Democrats or whatever and whatnot hide it much better than Republicans. That's what I've continued to see.
Now, I get all that stuff. I understand all that, but I'm just curious what it is about you that makes you interested in it. I'm looking for something a little more.
Sure. Yeah. So after I didn't really start paying attention to anything politically until Obama got in office. And then I actually picked up his book. And I started to see what he wanted to do to the United States. Mm-hmm. And, of course, this was well after the birth certificate. Well after that.
You think that was legit?
His birth certificate?
No. Or the lack thereof?
No, I don't.
Oh, you don't think he was a
No,
citizen?
I don't. I mean, technically speaking, if you actually went ahead and called Kenya and went through the proper checks or whatever and whatnot, they would act, because it's a public record. You could actually get a copy of his birth certificate. You've actually got his half brother stating that he was not born in Hawaii and that he was from Kenya. You have these things. You actually have it where Dinesh D'Souza actually went to Kenya to speak to his brother, half brother. I can't remember what his name is. It's a weird name. Mm-hmm. And he publicly stated that he was not born in the United States, and the fact that he was not eligible to be president, etc. But I'm not really here to go ahead and go down that road. I know people can go ahead and draw their own conclusions, but it was what he said of what he wanted to do with the country. The fact that he said he was, he was the first black president, and things of that nature, and he wasn't. He was not the first black president.
Was not the first black president.
No, he was not.
Okay.
No, the actual first black president before George Washington was actually a man by the name of John Hanson, which most people don't ever even really mention. But he actually was the first black president, but he was before George Washington. So I don't really look at that as he was the first black president. I think that's absolute just a lie, outright. But when I saw that, and then
this is the first time. I'm kind of dumbstruck. This is the first time I've heard this.
Okay, sure.
I was just curious about it. If so you're talking about a guy that was before President Washington.
That's correct.
But why?
He was an African American senator.
Okay, African American senator. Do you know what his name was? Yeah, you did. You just told me. I'm sorry.
John Hanson.
Okay.
The argument. I mean, depending on what article you read, some people say that he wasn't the first black president. Some people say that he was. I think he was because of the fact that he was before, George Washington, and the fact that no one really brings that up or whatever and whatnot. To me, I think is very significant and very compelling.
Okay, well, I'll have to look a little more into that to see what that's about. That's interesting. But yeah. Folks, like I said, do your research.
Yeah. So okay. So I'll continue.
Yeah.
So after I saw that, I picked up Dreams of My Father on Barack Obama, whose name is Barry Soetoro, and I went ahead and I looked through that. I just realized that we had just how I just really just kind of had my epiphany moment then. Because originally when I followed Trump or whatever, I mean, I really didn't pay attention to anything politically or whatever and whatnot until Obama actually got in office. I mean, I actually was indoctrinated to the point where, because my family had went ahead and voted for Bush or whatever, and we were Republicans all our lives. I thought he was just the greatest guy ever. But I've come to find out that it was just totally false. But it just goes to show just how thick indoctrination is on both sides of the paradigm.
All right, so just to give some update here, I was looking at John Hanson, the black gentleman that you were talking about. There's on the wiki, there's a small piece at the bottom here. It says Senator Hanson has sometimes been misidentified as being John Hanson of Maryland, a white politician who served as a president of the Continental Congress during the American Revolution. That sounds a little more like what you're talking about, where he was president before.
Yeah, that's why I said it could go. Yeah, that's kind of why I went ahead and said it could go either way. But I find it very interesting that in today's history books, it's not even in there.
Yeah, I mean, because this was the president of the Confederation of Congress, president of the Confederation Congress is what it's saying here. I'm assuming it was before. I'm not like reading in detail.
Yeah, it was before. Yeah. I mean, it was before we actually became the United States, of course. So that's actually one of the reasons why I understand on that where you're saying it could go either way, but I'm not seeing where he was a black president. There was a black president before, because that guy just completely is out of that's not in question. So Obama was the first black president, based on that quick research, anyway. Well, I mean, with his mom, I actually have to disagree, because, like I said, with his mom actually being white, his dad actually being from Kenya or whatever. I mean, he really wasn't the first black president. I have to disagree. I mean, he wasn't even legitimate in the first place. He was not natural born.
Oh, okay, so A wasn't a legitimate president, but B also wasn't actually black.
That's in my if you look at his heritage, no. I mean, if you look at his heritage, no, because his mom was white. I mean, you could say he was mixed, you could say. Okay. But his mom was white. His mom was born in Kansas.
Hell, you could say that about every president on some level, couldn't you? That every president is a mixed president of some sort, depending on how far back in the timeline you go.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, I mean, in my view or whatever, the thing is that if someone's illegitimate, you can't impeach somebody that's not that actually if you're sitting in an office and it's fraudulent. Mm-hmm. You can't impeach somebody that doesn't belong there in the first place. You have to go ahead and bring them out in cuffs. But because of the fact that everyone is bought and paid for in the Congress, it was never going to happen.
Are you saying that's why he was never impeached?
That's why he was never impeached. You can't impeach a fraud. You can't.
Interesting. Okay. All right.
See, the difference is we could pull Trump's birth certificate ourselves. We could see that he was born in the United States. We could see that he's actually classified as natural born, and he actually meets the qualifications of Article 2.
All right. Yeah, I know there's a bunch of rules that you have to follow in order to be president. Problem is, I'm an anarchist, so that makes it a little bit.
I totally understand.
Yeah.
But
I'm a guy that's sitting there going, okay, this is all silly. Like, I never did like the idea that you got one guy, at the top of the totem pole telling everybody how to run their lives. I mean, I can't even get my own daughter to do what I want her to do, let alone an entire country of people. That's insane. It does not make any sense. But that's not really the topic of discussion for tonight. I'm just more curious about you yourself. I mean, we can get into the nitty gritty and all the details.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I'm trying to get to know you a little bit better as a person, and trying to do it in such a way that we don't give away too much information about you to expose you or anything like that. But sure. I am curious. Do you have a family, like kids? Are you married? Do you have?
No, I'm not. No, I know I don't have any kids. I don't have any kids. I've never been married. Like I said, I mean, I'm single.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a consultant.
consultant? That's such a vague term. Everybody's a consultant.
I work for myself. I work for myself.
Self-employed consultant.
Yeah,
You are a
yeah,
ghost.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I mean,
You
I have
basically-
my own.
yeah.
You know, I mean, I have my own business. I work for myself, but technically speaking, is I'm actually not working for myself because my company actually employs me. I don't do business as an individual. I do business as an actual corporate entity.
Right. Okay. So, I guess what industry and like can you?
Mostly credit and business funding.
Credit and business funding.
Credit and business funding.
Is that why? Is that where the interest in the Federal Reserve and finance and all that comes into play? Is that how you got into that?
No, the actual interest for the Federal Reserve is because I've been trying to figure out or whatever why we continue no matter what the Federal Reserve, what that came about was no matter who we get in office, why can't we seem to go ahead and get anywhere with this in reference of us going back the other way? And
that's an easy question.
Looking,
that's easy.
Huh?
Well, that's an easy one to answer.
I know that now, but like I said, my big red pill was when Obama got in office, and then I started tracing everything back to Ronald Reagan after the fact.
So why do you think that we're not seeing politicians making any attempt to get rid of the Federal Reserve, or to at least go back to a gold standard?
In my opinion, if you don't go back to the gold standard, you're going to be able to get to the you're going to be able to make the financial system just everyday life in general more expensive, because eventually we're going to get to this one world order we keep hearing about, but we can't get to a one world government until we have a one world currency.
I don't know that answers the question I asked. I was just wondering why you think our politicians aren't making any efforts to go back to a gold standard.
Well, think about it. If you're I would have to say that probably 70 to 85% of Congress, House and Senate, in my opinion, is bribed and blackmailed. Because there's no other recollection in reference of why these people continue to stay there, because as many people as actually have voted, it just doesn't, in reference of, it doesn't really seem to change. I can't remember who said it, but people say there was I can't remember who it was, but somebody said, if voting actually mattered, they wouldn't allow us to do it.
I have heard that. I have heard that before, but
and the thing is that I think, like I said, I personally think that if you're a puppet and you're constantly being bribed and controlled, well, then of course you're going to be able to go ahead and tell what vote, how to vote. I think that the majority of politicians, when they change their mind, I don't really think it's because they have an opinion. I think they're just basically being told by whoever their handler is what to do. I really believe that probably less than 20% of Congress overall actually has free will themselves.
Yeah, I brought up an article by Mother Jones. It's titled "Who Owns Congress? A Campaign Cash Seating Chart," and it shows just putting everybody. When was this written there? To make sure I get this right. This is October of 2010, but I'm pretty sure the numbers are roughly the same. But it just kind of shows everybody seated at this chart. Number one is finance, insurance, and real estate. The second one is lawyers and lobbyists. The health insurance is the third on the chart. Then it goes to agribusiness, labor. Yeah, wow. that's interesting. But yeah, I could totally understand why. What would you say? 75%?
I would have to say anywhere between 70. I would have to say anywhere between 75 and between 70 and 85% of Congress is either bribed or blackmailed in some kind of way.
Yeah, that's probably a pretty relatively accurate if we go by this chart for guidance on informing that particular insight. That's pretty interesting. Yeah, obviously, our government maintains it is power. It's basically the monopoly on power over its citizens is all it is, and it makes a lot of sense that they would not want to go getting rid of the golden goose that's laying their eggs for them, which is the Federal Reserve, and the fact that they're on fiat currency and they can print whatever money they want to print. It gives them too much power is basically the short of it. They have too much power, and to go back to the gold standard severely limits their power, and they are not going to do that. It's just not. It's not in their interest to do so.
I'd like to touch on something really quick, connecting into all this. If there's one thing that I would like your listeners to get out of this, is just basically to go ahead and see that what we're in is what I call a it's an illusion. You remember in Disney World, you've heard of the Jungle Cruise, right, Daniel?
No, I've never been to Disney World.
Okay, sure.
No.
Well, basically, it's a ride that you get
it.
on. It's in the water, and every time you think you're going to go ahead and go, it looks like you're about to go ahead and go to the right. You actually get pulled back and go the other direction because there's a track up underneath the water. And I'm just about at the conclusion to go ahead and just basically believe that the majority of this is we're on some type of a track. See, I honestly thought at one point that we actually could break out. We would go ahead and completely go under eventually. But I didn't think it was going to happen in my lifetime. But after looking into this, as far as I've looked into it, I really see it. I really see it going ahead and going to this new world order, one world government in my lifetime. I actually see that. And the thing is that what everything is happening is everyone is basically looking all these different directions, but the majority of us are not really looking at the Fed, which is basically the thing that controls all of this corruption for the most part. And Daniel, I'd like to talk about specifically is how all of this connects into human trafficking, if I may.
Oh, absolutely.
So let's talk about the border. Regardless whether or not people are for Trump going ahead and separating the Trump administration, separating these children from their parents at the border. I've looked into this, and almost every country that basically goes ahead and makes an arrest when they try to go ahead and cross into their country, they separate them from the parents. They don't put the parents in the same jail cell with the actual adults. They don't do anything like that.
Yeah,
but if people actually go ahead and look in the Washington Post, I think it was back in 2018, the Washington Post actually admitted that Obama actually allowed children to be put in the hands of sex traffickers. Washington Post reported that. I was actually shocked and surprised.
Like knew about it and encouraged it, or just kind of turned a blind eye to it, or you talking just didn't know about it and it just ended up happening?
Oh, no, they just basically turned a blind eye to it, and the fact that Washington Post actually admitted that was back in 2018 was pretty shocking, in my view. But anyway, so the wars, all these unconstitutional wars that we're in right now, in my opinion, I would have to say that the majority of these wars, we're not even constitutionally. We weren't even constitutionally allowed to be there in the first place. And to be clear, because I get this a lot, just because I've supported Trump 25 years doesn't mean that I agree with everything that he does. Because he's done some things that I thought were the stupidest things that you could possibly imagine. Some of the things that he's done, but I just like the fact that he is so unpolitically correct that things continue to be exposed, and I think that more and more people are actually awakening to actually what is happening around us. And I think even Trump haters are actually coming around to the fact that we have a serious problem with this human trafficking, regardless of what your personal view is on Trump. But when it comes to these wars, like let's take the Iraq war, for example, of course, the weapons of the mass destruction. Mm-hmm. If we're going ahead and we are bombing over there, and we have record that 75%, and this is from mainstream media sources, 75% of the families that are coming across the border are not even with their real parents. And when we continue to bomb over there, what happens? The parents themselves could be killed. Their homes could be destroyed. Combination of the two. And they're coming over here because of the fact is they feel like they don't have any other place to go because of this warmonger neocon position. We have literally destroyed their homes and their lives, for that matter. And naturally, the reason why they want to keep the border open is because they want the children to be able to go ahead and buy votes. But not only do they want that to go ahead and try to make it the humane issue, what they also want to do, besides that, is they're basically being used, to have human smuggling, to smuggle these kids into the United States or whatever, and in turn, there's no way to track any of these that are going ahead and coming in. So who knows how many kids are actually coming in apprehended, actually coming into the border, that get across with people that aren't their parents, probably a human trafficker, smuggler, whatever. And these kids are tortured, or who knows what else could possibly have happened before they even got them over to the border so they could get them into, the United States. Because in my opinion, I don't think World War III is going to happen overseas. I think it's going to happen within the United States.
Well, if it happens within the United States, that's definitely not, that just falls outside the definition of a world war. That's a civil war.
Yeah, I honestly see that, happening before we even have anything in reference with this World War stuff. I personally think it's a distraction.
Well, before you get too much farther, there's something that's sticking in my mind that I wanted to ask. I wanted to hear what you had to say a little bit more, but I want to go back to, you were talking about how we're bombing these countries and they're coming over here, basically. But from what I understand, the vast majority of the people that we have coming over, not including the ones that are coming over just flying in, but I'm talking about from the southern border, are from south, countries south of us. I don't know of any wars that we're currently waging in those countries that would be the cause of that much mass migration. It makes a lot more sense to me that they're coming because of the fact that we do have benefits that they can get that are better than what they could get in their own country.
I'm not going to, well, sure. And like I said, I'm not going to disagree with you on that point, because as far as I'm concerned, all these benefits need to go ahead and be turned off. You've got 256, according to, it was a local article in San Francisco, but 265,000 people in California are homeless. It's just we need to take care of our own. You got vets that are dying in the streets. I totally
get it. Let me ask you. Because I know you pay attention to all these different issues, and these are definitely important issues to talk about. And I am concerned that you're this late in life, not married, you don't have kids. I'm assuming that's something you would like, and I'm just curious.
Yeah. I have reasons for it, and I'll actually give you what my reasons are.
Reasons for what?
Yep. I have reasons for being single, reasons for not being married, reasons for not having any children. Sure, I have reasons for it.
Yeah, that stuff I'm infinitely more curious about you as a person. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
sorry to
like
keep trying to.
I don't have any problem talking about that, but in my opinion, it all ties into this.
Yeah.
Because the cost of living is so ridiculously expensive. It was late 2019. It says that the average person needs $2.5 million to be able to go ahead and live on the interest at the current rate that the banks actually will give on your account per year. To me, that's pretty scary.
Yeah, that is a number that's put out in order to be scary. But that again, here's what my concern is. Yeah, I know all that, but I know you said it's super expensive to raise a family. But I mean, it just depends on where you're living. I mean, I'm living in Middle Tennessee, in a modestly nice home. I'm a single income provider for a family of 6. I have enough money to pursue hobbies like this. It's not unmanageable. I mean, I do it by myself. I'm not on food stamps. I feed my children. We eat pretty well. We're not eating ramen noodles every day. I mean, if I look at it like this, I mean, I figure if people could raise kids during the bubonic plague, I think we'll be okay. I'm going to have to just strike that.
I mean, I'm not. I'm just trying to. I'm not. Yeah, I mean, I'm not stating that you can't. I'll just basically say that I've made some decisions in my life that I wasn't. I'm not too particularly thrilled that I made those decisions, but
sure.
It is what it is.
Right.
With what I'm working on, what I'm building, it has absolutely nothing to do with politics. I just want to be in a position that, I guess I've been working on this for probably close to 5 years, but when it's finished, I just want to be in a position where I can take care of my mom. It's concerning with the things that's happened to her. And I don't believe in living on the government. I mean, I understand that people do it. Other places to live are much more expensive than others.
Sorry, I'm just curious.
But like I said, to keep it simple and short, I would have to say that I probably plan to settle down probably sometime in the next 5 years or so.
Oh, okay, I got you. Is your mom?
Yeah, but I mean, it's just
Anthony.
I'm alone for the most part or whatever. I don't have the best relationship with my family.
Yeah.
On one side I'm fine, but on the other side it's been a real struggle. I was emancipated when I was 17.
Sure.
Like I said, my parents went through a really, really rough divorce. There's been a lot of things in my life that have happened. I've tried to go ahead and get married or whatever and whatnot. It just didn't work out because there were some things about my life that I just really wasn't grasping or whatever and whatnot. And I realized that I wanted to get those things fixed before I decided to go ahead and have a family of my own.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because I feel like if you're not happy with yourself, you really can't make anybody else happy if you can't be happy with yourself. So I decided that was going to be my number one priority before I decided to go out and try that again.
Cool. So I assume this isn't like all-consuming. All this research you're doing. That would be my main concern because I know a lot of people tend to get super hyper-focused into this stuff to the detriment of all else around them. I'd just be concerned for that. But yeah, I mean, so
what I will say is that knowing what I know and other things that I can't talk about, that I don't want to talk about on this program.
Sure.
I will say that it is going to allow me to basically retire where I can pretty much be able to do what it is that I want to do. And the fact that most people, put it this way, with most people, in my opinion, from what I've seen, who I've talked to, etc., you're in a very blessed position to be in. I mean, I commend you for whatever it is that you do, to make your living, to support your 6 children. I commend you for it. But the majority of people that I talk to, they don't even, like, for example, my mom, she lost, just to give you an idea, she lost $250,000 in the last recession. But versus going ahead and getting out, learning from it, she's still in the stock market thinking that that's the way to go. And it's not the way to go.
Right.
It's not. And the fact is I know that I'm going to have to be the one to go ahead and do it for her because I know the next crash, whenever we have it, will be way worse than 2008.
I agree with you there. So listen, Anthony, I appreciate you opening up and having this conversation. We've gone down many trails in this journey. It's been good to get to know you a little bit better, and like I said, I appreciate you giving us your perspective on things. So I'd like to give you the chance to tell people where they can reach you if they want to hit you up for further questions or conversation, or just interact with you online.
Sure. Twitter would be the political Ital, ending in ITAL, political Ital, and also on, which would be Twitter, and then Clout Hub, which would be the political Italian.
Alrighty, the political Ital. I had it brought up just.
I understand.
I had the tab brought up and I can't find it. All right, so you're on Twitter at the political Ital. So
before we wrap up, this is what I really wanted to talk about. I would like to just get a few more minutes and then I'll be finished if you don't mind.
Yeah. If you can keep it short, I think that'd be fine. We're already running well over an hour.
I'll keep it short. So this when it comes to, like I said, back to this human trafficking, the Fed, this national debt that we continue to go ahead and we rack up, and we have the national debt ceiling and all these other different things or whatever and whatnot. It's to me after looking into all this, it's really nothing more than a distraction of everything, in my opinion, everything that is happening right now, regardless of, what people's views are on it. When it comes to wars, the out of control debt, the immigration problem that we have, the Russia hoax, Pizzagate, the impeachment scandal, all of it.
Yeah.
It's all, in my opinion, every bit of this is all tied to covering up human trafficking and the Fed. And for everything that I've researched into this, it all comes back to those two things.
Right on. It's definitely something to be paying attention to, that's for sure. All right.
Yep, that's it. I appreciate your time, Daniel.
Yeah, not a problem, man. I again appreciate you coming on the show. I look forward to doing it again sometime. Maybe next time we can do it with Anthony. And so if y'all enjoyed what you saw tonight, be sure to hit him up at Political Ital and let him know what you thought. I'll be publishing. All right, y'all been watching another episode of the Unframe of Mind show, where we have uncomfortable conversations without a condom. Peace out.